info. Like I said, we're going to kick this thing off with really our first true speakers of the day. This is a father-daughter duo, Haley and Kevin Carroll. Haley was a My Hometown Heroes scholarship recipient in 2016 after she was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma at 17 years old, the summer before her senior year of high school. These two obviously have been through quite a few things in the last 5 years, and we just want to hear their story. Again, if you have any questions or comments, leave those in the chat box, and we'll have a discussion period after. Without further ado, Kevin and Haley.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Doug, thank you for the introduction. Danny, great job with your motivational speech as always. So thank you. And Haley and I are very honored to be here today sharing our journey and our family's journey over the past 5 years. Our presentation is going to talk about the beginning, which was the diagnosis of cancer of Haley, the middle part, which was the going through the treatment, and then the end, when we found out that there was no evidence of disease, and then where we are today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to my most amazing, beautiful, my hero, daughter, Haley Carroll.
Thanks, Dad. I'm Haley. As mentioned, I'm a Burkitt's lymphoma survivor, and I am a My Hometown Heroes scholarship recipient. If you want to switch the slide, Dad. And this is just a picture of my mom, Dad, and I at an event for the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation a few months after I was diagnosed. And as my dad mentioned, we will start with the beginning, the diagnosis. So in July of 2015, I began not feeling well. I was getting ready to start my senior year of high school. I just started having stomach aches, headaches, fevers. I went to my primary doctor. She said it was just the flu. We didn't really think anything of it. But then after having a fever for over a week, I went to urgent care. They ended up sending me to the emergency room. They thought something was wrong with my liver. And then at the emergency room, they did lots of scans, lots of tests, but again, couldn't really find anything. So they just told me to follow up with my primary doctor. So then that next Monday, I went to my primary doctor. She did blood work. And then that night I was staying at my dad's house, but my doctor called my mom, telling us to get to the hospital right away. Of course, we weren't too concerned. So my dad was making dinner and we just wanted to eat dinner before I had to go to the hospital, but she was very adamant about us getting there as soon as possible. As soon as we got to the pediatric floor at Renown, the doctors were waiting for us, so we knew something was definitely wrong. I stayed in the hospital in Reno over the next few days. They did lots of tests, a colonoscopy, and then after that, they told us that I needed to be transferred, and we chose to go to UCSF in San Francisco to be diagnosed because they couldn't diagnose me in Reno. So my mom and I were care flighted. They accidentally took us to the wrong hospital at first because there's UCSF Oakland and then UCSF San Francisco. So I remember getting out of the ambulance and getting into the hospital and one of the EMTs saying, I think we're at the wrong hospital. So we got back in the ambulance and then showed up at the correct hospital. I had more tests done over the next few days at UCSF, and then on July 15th, I got the diagnosis that I had Burkitt's lymphoma. I had surgery to remove the tumor on my intestines, and I ended up needing an ileostomy, which my intestines were on the outside of my body. I had a bag just to let my intestines heal. I felt so weak after the surgery. The night after my surgery, my nurse had to keep coming to check on me because my vitals were all over the place. And I just remember having to have my nurses reposition me in bed because I couldn't move on my own because I was so weak. And then after being in the hospital for about a month, I was finally discharged. But then after being home for a few days, I had to go back to the emergency room in Reno, and I found out that I had an infection and an abscess in my abdomen, and I had to be care flighted back to UCSF. So through this whole process of the first month, I was just wondering if I was going to be okay, what my treatment would be like, would I lose my hair. Again, I was going into my senior year of high school, so I was really upset about having to miss those events. I was also a cheerleader, and so I was upset about having to miss cheer. And then just the pictures on this slide, the one on the left is me getting into the ambulance in Reno to be taken to the airport to get on the plane. The top right is me and my brother showing our Haley Strong bracelets. And then the bottom one is just me in the hospital as my nurses setting up chemo.
So transitioning from Haley's perspective of the story to a father's perspective, Haley was actually, like she said, in early July of 2015, was not feeling well. And as a dad, I'm like, it's a cold, but it kept persisting, the symptoms, and she didn't seem to be getting much better until one day she decided that she wanted to go shopping with her brother and get her car and go driving. I thought, oh, she's not that sick, no big deal. But fast forward a little bit, a few days later, like Haley had mentioned, we had gotten a call that Haley needed to be to the hospital, taken to the hospital immediately. Again, kind of blowing it off. We were making dinner, like she said. And as a dad, I said, well, look, we've got to finish dinner or get dinner going and finish it. And then we'll get to the hospital. And they said, no, you need to get to the hospital now. And as a parent hearing that, you start to panic a little bit, anxiety goes up. So got in the car, got to the hospital, walked in to the floor of the children's floor of the hospital. And there was a team of medical professionals waiting. And again, as a parent, you see that, it kind of freaks you out, like something serious. So she was admitted to the hospital. Many tests were taken. A couple days went by, and they were just trying to figure out what was going on when the pediatrician on the floor there asked Haley's mom, April, and me to go to another room. When that happens, you know it's serious. And I think Haley knew that too. So we went to the room next door, and Dr. Paul told us that it could be one of two things. It could be Crohn's disease or it could be cancer. And hearing those two, illnesses, we knew were very serious, but I think as parents, we were hoping it was Crohn's disease. I didn't know much about Crohn's disease, but I didn't want my daughter to have cancer, right? So more tests were taken, and Haley went in for one of them, which was a colonoscopy, and we were out in the waiting room waiting for this to take place, and they took some photos. And a little while later, the doctor came out and he showed us some pictures of Haley's tissue. And looking at these pictures was very frightening. He showed us what the good tissue looked like in her intestine, and there was some dead tissue as well. And it was an ugly, ugly picture. And as a parent, again, you get very scared when you see that. So they told us they wanted to send Haley to Children's Hospital. They gave us three choices. I think it was Stanford, Davis, I think, or UCSF. And at the time, my brother lived in San Francisco, so we just made a quick decision and said, let's go to UCSF. Not even really doing any research on the hospitals at that time, but we just kind of made a quick decision that we were going to go there. So as Haley mentioned, her and her mom were taken in an ambulance airplane down there. Our son Trevor and I, we got in the car and drove down to the hospital. And when we got there, we had heard Haley was admitted to the oncology floor. And at that point, I'm starting to think, well, maybe this isn't Crohn's disease, it may be cancer. But again, a little bit of denial there, thinking, okay, there's a possibility she's going to be okay, maybe just have Crohn's disease. So did some more tests on Haley, and 5 years ago, July 15th, 2015, we got the word that no parent wants to hear. And the doctors came in, a team of doctors, and said, Haley has a type of cancer, and it's called Burkitt's lymphoma. So you can imagine what that felt like. It's scary. It's the word you don't want to hear. And with that, Haley then, as she mentioned, went through some surgeries, had some complications during that time. And we were getting ready after that to begin the treatment. So as Haley mentioned, we like to talk, as we're talking here, we like to talk about what's going through our mind. And as a parent, so much. I can't even start to explain what goes through your mind. But first of all, you want to know, is your daughter going to be okay? What is the survival rate of this type of cancer? What can we expect in the future? I'm a very type A person. I want to know everything that's going to happen. And you're thinking all that stuff. What about our son, Trevor? Who's going to take care of him during this time? I'm a high school principal. I was getting ready to start a school year. Super excited for that. And what is this going to have as far as an impact on my job? Traveling to San Francisco back and forth to Reno to San Francisco. What's the financial impact? What is that going to be? Charity's been flown over to San Francisco twice. And I think that the biggest part is the anxiety, and like I mentioned, the unknown. So with that, we're going to take you to the middle part of this journey, and that is Haley's treatment.
So I had to have 5 rounds of chemo. I actually had my first round of chemo 5 years ago today. And I just remember waking up after my first round of chemo and just feeling off. I had a weird taste in my mouth. I felt nauseous. I felt weak. And throughout my chemo, I had to be in and out of the hospital. I got all my chemo in San Francisco, but in between each round, I was hospitalized many times in Reno due to infections. I had other side effects such as seizures. I had to have a feeding tube because I had lost so much weight, and I had to use a wheelchair because I was so weak. I shaved my head in the hospital. I remember getting admitted to the hospital in Reno because of an infection. As soon as I got into my room, I just grabbed my hair and a big clump came out. And up until that point, I had been kind of hopeful that I wasn't going to lose my hair because I had gone through 2 rounds of chemo already. So just seeing the hair in my hand, I got really upset. But luckily I had my hair lady come to the hospital the next day and she shaved my head for me there. I also had my best friend Zona shave her head with me. My mom shaved her head for me. My grandma, my grandpa, and my stepdad all shaved their heads for me as well.
Mine was already shaved at the time, so.
And then I did online school for the first semester. But I was still able to attend some events. I went to Senior Sunrise, and then I had to drive down to San Francisco right after that for another round of chemo. I was able to go to some football games, and I was still able to go watch my cheer team at practice, and my coach even let me help pick out the music and the choreography for our routine. And through this time, going through my mind, I was just tired of being in and out of the hospital. After my second round of chemo, when I was at home, I remember laying in bed and just feeling so depressed and honestly not knowing if I could get through the rest of it. Just thinking that like I wasn't even halfway done and I was so tired of feeling this way. But I was super thankful for all of the support that I was receiving from my friends, family, my school, my cheer gym, and at the time, the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation. I knew that whenever I felt this way, I could just reach out to them and they would be there for me. I did not like having my ostomy. It was super difficult to care for it when I felt so weak and out of control, but luckily my mom was able to help me with it.
His dad was not going to.
And then these pictures, just me going through treatment. When I was bald, my brother loved to sniff my head. So that's what he's doing in that picture. And then the one on the right is right after I got my port.
So during this time, against a lot of anxiety and a lot of unknown, Haley was having the treatments. I remember when Haley and her mom were down at UCSF, and they called me to let me know what the side effects possibly could be of the treatment. And there were many. Haley mentioned a lot of those already, such as hair loss, weight loss. I was concerned about what long-term effects would be from the chemo. That crossed my mind as well. So, and then I think it was that same day or the day after, during this period, we had a number of people reach out to us and say, you've got to contact the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation. And as a parent, you have a lot of pride, and you know, April and I had good jobs. We had good insurance. We felt we were great parents, and you know, we don't need help. We can do this. We can do this. And finally, Leslie from the director of NNCCF called me and said, you just come in and talk to us, please. We'd love to talk to you. Let us know how we can help you out. So I remember going down to the office there and sitting down with Leslie, and just an amazing woman. And I told her, I said, we're fine, we're good. And she said, Kevin, right now I need you to take your pride and throw it out the window and let us take care of you. I needed to hear that. it took a big weight off. She said they could help us financially. They could help us with support, any support that we needed emotionally, just everything that we needed. They were there to help us with. So that was, like I said, a big relief for us. Haley mentioned the shaving of her head. That I was, as a dad, that's tough, especially as you can see now, the beautiful head of hair that Haley has. But I got to the point where I said, bald is beautiful too. And so kind of like Trevor, I'd like to kiss her bald head all the time. It was tough balancing, traveling to San Francisco with Haley. Like I said, school was starting, taking care of our son. I mean, his social and emotional needs as well. His best friend was just diagnosed with cancer, his sister. And so we had to really focus on him as well. Many hospital stays, many ambulance rides, like we mentioned, the emergency flights to UCSF, and then all the stays that April and I switched off with in San Francisco, sleeping in the hospital room during those treatments with Haley. And then a real moment came to me. We were at my condo, and Haley was heating up some dinner in the kitchen, and I looked back, and all of a sudden she was in a full-out seizure. She fell. She hit her head on the counter. There was blood everywhere. She was convulsing. I was holding her in my arm, and I thought I was going to lose my daughter at that point. I did not know what was going on. I was yelling to Trevor to call 911. Paramedics came, firefighters came, got Haley into the ambulance, got her to the hospital. And I ended up staying in the hospital with her that night, and obviously couldn't sleep. And I couldn't sleep not only because of what I had experienced, but I was worried about a meeting I had at school that morning. And as a school leader, and I know there's going to be a session later on leadership, there's a point when you have to be vulnerable and trust the people around you. And at that moment, I thought, I cannot go back to work at this point. I'm sitting here worried about a meeting when my daughter's laying in a hospital bed. April had already taken a leave of absence that's from her administrative position in the district. And I just thought, I have to do this. So I called my area superintendent that morning. I asked if I could meet with her, and she said, Kevin, take the semester off. We've got it. And so again, as a leader, relinquishing that control is difficult. But I think Danny mentioned it in his speech, you learn a lot as you go through this stuff. And I learned a lot through that moment. So I took a leave of absence. During this time, we're talking about a lot of things that are taking place, and there's a lot of positive that happens as well. And the support that we receive from family and friends, our parents, our siblings, our friends. One of our best friends had a fundraiser for Haley at a park, a cheerleading fundraiser, right when she was going through this, and it was absolutely amazing. The Make-A-Wish Foundation that I know all of you are aware of, Haley will talk about that a little bit more later on. The support and the fundraisers that came about. Haley's school, Worcester High School, they did a fundraiser. My school came around and did a penny drive for us. And we had a football game at the end of the football season where they recognized Haley, did a fundraiser for her there as well. And it was between Sparks High School, my school, and then Haley's school, Worcester. So I can't remember who won that game. Haley, do you remember?
I think you guys did.
I think you did too. Anyway, Haley was missing a lot. She was missing so much school, but she did get to go to the winter ball that year. And I remember seeing her win the winter ball queen at Worcester her senior year. So that was really cool. She turned 18. So we had a big celebration with her friends and family, a big party for her for 18th birthday. One source that was really, really good to us was the local media, the radio stations, the TV stations. Our local newspaper did a front page story of us and followed Haley through the process. One of the news stations did a few stories with Haley actually. So that was really cool. And again, what's going through my mind during the treatment period was a lot of confusion, a lot of worrying, again, still that anxiety being there. During this time, my mother was also going through treatment for ovarian cancer. And as a dad and as a son, I was torn. I mean, who am I taking care of here? And so I went to therapy, and my therapist said, you got to take care of your daughter. There's people take care of your mom, and not to say I didn't see my mom and help with my mom as well, but my priority had to be my daughter at this point. many setbacks from the cancer, and you can't predict one day to the next. And that was hard for me because, like I said, I'm a real planner, and every day changed. And it just is, as a parent going through that, it's tough. So with that, we are going to get to some good news here. The end of treatment and the part where Haley's going to talk about no evidence of disease.
So I had my last chemo in October 2015. And like my dad mentioned, we had so much support from the media. So right before my last round of chemo, thanks to one of the local radio stations, I was able to meet Luke Bryan. And so that gave me a lot of motivation going into my final round. I rang the bell and we were playing Fight Song. That was my motivational song during the time and still is. And all of the nurses on the unit came and watched me and cheered me on. I had my final surgery to reverse my ostomy in December, and they did scans the day before surgery to see if the cancer was gone. So they told us that we would have the results in a few hours. So my mom, grandma, and I were going to go to dinner in San Francisco. They told me I could choose anywhere I wanted. And for some reason I chose Olive Garden, which Olive Garden is really good, but there's a lot of unique places in San Francisco. And so we were pulling up into the Olive Garden parking lot when my mom's phone started ringing, and it was the doctor. And she asked my mom if she was sitting down. My mom said she was driving. And so she said, okay, wait till you park and then I'll tell you the news. So we parked, and she said that my scan showed no evidence of disease. And just hearing those words, I felt a huge relief. And then I was able to graduate with my class and get back into cheerleading to finish the rest of the season. During this time, what's going through my mind, I was excited to be done with treatment and to be cancer-free, but of course I was still worried about the future and worried about the new normal, how things would be different in my life from then on. I was anxious but excited to go back to school for the final semester of high school. And I did have survivor's guilt. I had to go to counseling for a few months, and I still get it every now and then, just like thinking about why I survived, and then there's all these other people who are passing away from cancer. And then I also had PTSD, still get that a little bit today. Going back to UCSF for checkups gives me a lot of anxiety. Even just like the smell of the soap at the hospital gives me anxiety. And even just the other day, I was washing my hands at a gas station, and it was like the same scent of soap, and I just freaked out. But yeah, for the most part, I was excited to be done.
I think we all were. One of my memories was when Haley got to ring the bell at UCSF after her last chemo treatment, and all the nurses came, like she said, and family was there, and they were playing the Rachel Platten song, Fight Song, which was the song that we had for Haley during this time. In fact, I was at the gym yesterday and it came on, and I always tear up when I hear that song because it brings so much back. So after the chemo, we had the good news of no evidence of disease. But still anxious. You know, what is the cancer going to come back? Future scans, future doctor visits. What is all this going to look like? Concerned about that. But then, as Haley mentioned, she was with her mom and April and grandmother Debbie going to dinner, and I was actually pulling up to a local restaurant myself and Trevor with me, and we got the call from them saying that they got the call from the doctor that there was no evidence of disease. And as a parent, again, it's a big weight lifted off, and we were super excited. Still some anxiety though. Like I said, anxious about the future, but very relieved. Haley was finishing up her senior year, getting ready for college. And again, I mentioned the support from different individuals, and I just want to give our huge shout out to my hometown heroes and Danny, who's become a really good friend, and everybody on the board I've built relationships with. So again, another positive. They provided Haley financial support through college. Again, the Northern Nevada Cancer Foundation, Children's Cancer Foundation, also provided a scholarship for Haley. So again, we were still getting the support and building those relationships with the community, which was absolutely amazing. I personally, I was going back to school, going back to work in January after taking the semester off to be with Haley and Trevor and care for them. And so I was excited about that, super excited, but a little anxious as well. What transpired during the last 5-6 months while I wasn't there. So in the pictures here on the bottom left is Haley and Trevor with her last chemo. Up in the upper middle there, it's Haley and I leaving after her last stay at UCSF, which we were super excited for, getting ready right back to Reno. And then the bottom right is probably my favorite picture. If you told me 5 years ago that we'd have this picture of Haley, I would have had a hard time believing that after seeing everything that she was going through. But as you can see, she's almost ready to be a full-fledged nurse as she's finishing up her last semester of nursing school at the University of Nevada, Reno.
And now living cancer-free. So like my dad said, I'm currently studying nursing at the University of Nevada, Reno. I'll be graduating in December, and I hope to become a pediatric oncology nurse just so I can help out all the kids and families who are going through similar things. Going through all of this, I'm so thankful for all of the support that I received and still receive to this day. Again, like my dad said, super thankful for my hometown heroes giving me scholarships so that I can make my dreams a reality. And although it was difficult to go through, I learned so much from the experience. Some of these things are live every day to the fullest because you don't know when life can change. Don't be afraid to show your emotions. Before I was diagnosed with cancer, we would always make fun of my mom because she cried so much. But after going through this, we realized it's okay to cry and it can help. And now we all cry all the time. And then going along with that, just don't forget to tell your loved ones how much you love them. And I'm super thankful for the little things in life, like being able to drive my car and go to school. I remember after I was cancer-free, my mom and I were driving past Renown, the hospital, and we were just thankful that I didn't have to go to the hospital and we could just drive past it without stopping there. And just positive things from this experience. I was able to make new connections and new friends through organizations like My Hometown Heroes and the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation. And then just through social media, I've made a lot of cancer friends. And then my Make-A-Wish trip, I wished to go to the cheerleading worlds competition in Orlando. And it was cool because I kind of got 2 wishes out of 1 because I went to the competition and went to Disney World. And just looking forward to that throughout all of treatment was super helpful, super motivational. And then again, just receiving great scholarships.
And living in the now with a daughter who's a cancer survivor, what's going through my mind? Well, obviously seeing Haley become the amazing young woman that she is today, seeing the growth and the healing of our son Trevor and Haley both, as he and Haley went through this together and as best friends. So seeing the closeness that actually grew between them, the closeness of family that coming together. April and I were divorced, and as a lot of people know, divorce can be contentious. When your daughter is sick, you have to become close and care for your child. So I was very grateful that April and I were able to be close to this whole process, and her family and my family as well. My personal growth as not only a father, as a educator, as a leader, and just as a person. Over the last five years, I have completely changed as a person, and I'm thankful for that, very, very grateful for that. And then all the positive things that came from this this experience, the new relationships, like I said, we built with the community. And again, I want to give a shout out to Danny and the board. I just feel grateful for all of you. This was really cool. I think was it a year later, Haley, or 2 years?
A year.
We were asked to go advocate for the STAR Act in Washington, D.C. with the Northern Nevada Children's Cancer Foundation. So we went back to D.C. and we met with all the lawmakers, and not all, but our local ones on Capitol Hill, and what a great experience that was. So I'll always remember that piece. And that STAR Act was actually signed by the president last year. I really look at the strength and the independence and confidence in both Haley and Trevor. They've become just amazing young adults. And I mean, not to say they wouldn't have been amazing if they hadn't gone through this, but I think this experience really helped them with their confidence and independence and strength, as I had mentioned. And then Haley alluded to this. We really appreciate the small things now and empathize with others without judging people, because you don't know their story. Okay. And I think that's really important. You know, I give the story when I remember April and her husband and Haley were coming back over the pass, and Haley wasn't feeling good. And there was a car accident, and Haley was just super, super sick. And April's husband, Alan, I remember telling me that he got in the shoulder of the road and passed all the traffic with his hazards on. And so if I see a car speeding past me now, I don't get upset. I don't know their story. I don't know what's going on. So again, empathize with others without judging them. And I think, and Haley mentioned this too, it's okay to be vulnerable. You go through this, and you know, us sharing our story, I feel we're vulnerable doing that. I'm tearing up here on screen, and it's okay. It's okay to be like that. And I just have to say the last thing before we move over to the question and answers is Haley and Trevor are my two true heroes. They always will be. So through the experience, there are a lot of ups and downs, a lot of bumps in the road, but in the end, right now, we feel very grateful and positive. Quickly, before we go to the Q&A, pictures, the one on the left is Haley and Trevor being thankful on Thanksgiving Day here in Reno. I love that picture. Trevor was really into photography and took that picture with his camera. The upper picture here with Haley and me, that's on the Truckee River here in Reno. We were having a photo shoot for the front page of the Reno Gazette Journal. As I mentioned, they did a number of stories on our family. And so that's one of my favorite pictures of the experience. And then on the bottom, Haley and April and Zona with their head shaved. And I love that picture also. So with that, I will stop sharing our screen. And I think we're going to open it up for questions at this point. Is that right, Brian?
Yes, sir. See if we have any in the, got the comment here. Says, congratulations, Haley, such a powerful story and a wonderful profession you're going into. You'll definitely be able to connect with your patients on a deeper level, and they will be lucky to have you as their nurse.
Thank you.
And then another one here, thanks for sharing your story. Someone has the exact same reaction to the soap in the hospital.
I never knew that, Haley.
Yeah, it stresses me out.
There is a certain smell, that's for sure. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll get to them here. From April, great job, Haley and Kevin. And Trevor are definitely my heroes. Here's a question here. I guess I'm coming in now. Kevin, what's one piece of advice you would have for another parent?
It's a great question. I think, and I wasn't good about this, but I think reaching out to other parents that are going through the same thing. I think you feel like you're on an island a lot, as you probably know. And I think just having that support of others that are going through it, I think that would be my number one piece of advice is reach out to others and get that support, because as a parent, like I said, as a parent, and going through it, you're on an island and it's tough. So that's a great question. Thank you.
A question for Haley from Emily. When did you decide you wanted to be a nurse?
I was always kind of interested in it, but after going through everything and just seeing everything that my nurses did for me, that made me really passionate about it.
A couple comments here from Tanya. Thank you so much for sharing, Haley. I had to have a temporary lostotomy for a year or two. Bravo to you. I'm going back to school to work in oncology after surviving as well.
Awesome.
Question here from Victoria from Haley. What's your favorite part of nursing school so far? And then just a comment, so proud of everything you've done.
Thanks, Victoria. I think my favorite part is just all the friendships and connections I've made. It's definitely a lot of work, but I know that like with my group of friends, I can rely on them to help me with anything, and they can come to me too.
couple other ones here. Kevin, you speak with such love and grace of your heroes. Thank you for being real. You're going to make an incredible nurse, Haley. Hope Molly becomes one of your cancer friends because you are an inspiration. Haley, what advice do you have for other young women going through cancer?
Just stay positive. Don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. At the time, I didn't really know anyone else who was going through cancer, but definitely just reaching out to my friends and, like my dad said, being vulnerable, letting them know how you feel, and then just always count on your nurses for support as well, and your family.
Another question here, is it tough being in the oncology environment? I'm going back to school to become an oncology social worker after being a teacher.
For me, it brings back a lot of memories, but at the same time, it like makes me more passionate about wanting to work in that field and help out others.
I have a question for you, actually, Haley. What, when you went through this, did you always want to be a nurse and just decided to switch to oncology when you went through this, or was this kind of a career-changing goal for you after this experience?
Well, like I always kind of wanted to be a nurse, but like I was going back and forth between a few different things, and then this made me want to be a nurse and definitely made me want to do pediatric oncology.
That's awesome. There's another one just came in. Can you think about how your relationships within your family changed as a result of this experience?
Well, like my dad said, my parents are divorced. And even before I was diagnosed, they were friends, but going through this, they got a lot closer. My dad's close with my stepdad as well. And then my grandparents on both sides came together. I think it brought us closer together than, I feel like closer than even when my parents were married. I was always close with my brother too, but it brought us a lot closer too.
And if I can add to that, I think, and not just immediate family, but other family members. I mean, we had people visit who we hadn't seen in years, visit Haley in the hospital, both family and friends. And so reestablishing those relationships was amazing. And like I said, just the closeness that you have to have going through this, because it can tear you apart. And so you need that support of others.
Another quick comment here from Haley. Haley, you are awesome, and thank you for sharing your story. Another question just came in. What ideas do you have for the siblings? Is Trevor around to hear from? It's so hard to juggle since all the attention from medical staff and the community focuses on them.
You want to answer that, Dad, or do you want me to?
Why don't you do it, and then I'll go in after you.
Okay. Unfortunately, Trevor's not here. It would be good to hear from him, but he did have a really hard time. And I think part of it was that I was getting most of the attention, and then another part was just seeing me go through all of that. So he did have to go to therapy, which helped him a lot. He's super like grounded now, super spiritual. But I think like just making sure that you still do show them attention. So like my parents, Trevor would either stay with my mom or my dad, and then the other one would stay with me in the hospital. So he was still around them. And yeah, just making sure that like when I was home, I gave him attention and hung out with him and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question again, Bunny. I think as hard as it is, you're focusing on your ill child, but you really have to remember to focus on the other siblings as well, and give them the attention. And I think from my perspective and looking back, I felt that we did a very good job with that. But from the siblings' point of view, they don't see it that way. And so it's so important that you are intentional about providing that attention to those other siblings, because their perception is that Haley's getting all the attention, and yet she was getting a lot of attention, and not just from us, but from everybody. And so you have to go, again, like I said, be very, very intentional to provide that support and attention to those other siblings as well.
A question coming in from Marcia. How old was Trevor when Haley was diagnosed?
He would have been 15. Yeah, he was 15, tough age.
This is awesome, you guys. Thank you so much for participating. Really grateful for Kevin and Haley here, and everybody here for participating. We've got a great turnout. We got 30 people on the call, which is awesome for the first year out. And I think we only have more ground to gain from here. So